Welcome to the African Descendants Forum, a vibrant platform dedicated to celebrating and amplifying the voices of individuals from the African diaspora, both home and abroad. My name is Edwin Baker, and today we are honoured to have a remarkable guest join us in the studio. So please welcome Chief Inspector Rebecca Calpin, a dedicated leader within West Yorkshire Police. With a career spanning over 21 years, Chief Inspector Calpin has worked tirelessly in various neighbourhood areas, contributing significantly to community safety and engagement. So, hi Rebecca, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. Well, I think maybe where we should begin is you just telling our audience who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so Rebecca Calpin, I'm Chief Inspector of the Neighbourhoods and Partnerships portfolio over at Kirklees. So Kirklees District, which has got Huddersfield, Dewsbury, Batley and rural areas. And I've got neighbourhood teams in all those 4 areas, plus the partnerships team, which are all underneath me as sort of my portfolio.
In your role, the priorities for you in your role, what you consider them to be?
Well, my role is very much around the sort of the 4 neighbourhoods. So if you look at the strands of policing and the neighbourhood strands of policing, looking after victims of crime, and then over and above that, it's all the crime trends. So looking at, like, you know, is there certain issues in certain areas? What are those crime trends? What are we then as a neighbourhood team and a partnership team doing about those issues? So, and I had a conversation this week about bringing things really back to basics. You know, people don't phone the police because something has happened in their life that's good. Generally, people phone us when they need us. So myself, I've got the neighbourhood strand. So we've got like the operations strand, who are the blue light services who go out and respond to those immediate calls. But when you strip that back, it's a little bit like, well, why are these things why are these crimes ongoing? Is there a pattern to these crimes? Is there a person, perpetrators? Is there things that as a neighbourhood team we can looking into a bit deeper, and then looking at the environmental side of things as to actually, is there more that we can do to prevent that crime, prevent that person and prevent another victim?
In your opinion, and given your experience and history within the police force, what would you consider to be the biggest misconception about the police held by members of the community?
I think the biggest misconception is that we've only got like the one viewpoint. We've only got the one, we go in, we want to go into communities, we want to, we want to deal with crime in communities, and actually it's the fact that, what about the community? What is left when we go out of that community? And a lot of things I get is around how we police, and how we go about policing. We know what we've got to do. We know that, we know that we have to arrest people when offences get committed. But for me, it's more about how do we do that, and then what is that lasting impact, and what is that impression that is left as a result of our tactics. Historically, we've gone through various sort of things historically whereby, the policing has been seen as being over zealous policing, or, we've not done things right, we've not cared about what's been left, and we've kind of gone in and come out. Whereas actually, we now, or my neighbourhood teams, that's very much what I sort of say, and what I speak about frequently is policing with the community, not to the community. And that's a phrase that I use really often in quite a lot of my meetings, is we need to think about the people who are left there, the people who are, ringing us when they need us, but then actually what is that bigger picture and that wider picture around why did they phone us, and what can we do, and how can we police with.
Now, Kirklees is a very diverse community.
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges that you face in dealing with that diversity, in terms of how you police such a diverse community? Is it a problem, or does the diversity actually help your policing? I don't know.
It's not a problem at all. It's just the challenge of understanding. And I think, like I've talked about, we have patrol officers, response officers who go in, deal with the crime, and are very transactional in that they get called to an incident, they deal with the incident, they come away from the incident. When you work within my world and the neighbourhood world, it's more about, well, actually, do you understand the wider issues when you go in and into, if you go into the Asian community and go and arrest, the impacts that may have on family, and then the beliefs and is that fully understood by all officers? And one of our biggest challenges is being able to educate officers to actually, be respectful. And when we're having to go and do our job and do our duty, yes, we have to do it. And yes, there are certain times when it's challenging. However, it's a case of doing it in a respectful manner and then understanding. And if there's an understanding of perhaps some of the historical trauma that some people are facing, especially, when we talk about the policing, if we understand that trauma and we understand how perhaps it may impact on somebody with us coming in to the house and coming into a person's private space, is how we can do that in a respectful manner, still obviously doing our job.
Before we focus in a little bit about Kirklees, can you just give our viewers just an overview of what the Police Race Action Plan is, what it's about, what its intention is? So
there's 4 work streams. The first one is that Black people are represented, and that's with regards to the inclusivity within our role. So as a police service, we are wanting to recruit members from the Black community so that we are able to, and goes back to what I said before, able to understand some of the trauma, understand and be influenced, and some of our policies and our procedures and things that we put in place have that voice from the Black community and from policing stance. So the way we've sort of gone about doing that is looking at recruiting from Black community into the police service, and within last year we've increased that by 15%. So in police officers and staff within the organisation, still a long way to go. And when you look at the representation levels, they're still not where we would like them to be. But it's a case of you've got to get that trust before somebody will go, actually, yes, I want to join the police. But then at that point, we've then got a voice, and we can, start to understand and start to change policies and procedures in line with how the Black community would like to be policed. So that's work stream 1. Work stream 2 is the Black community not over policed. So there we'll look at stop search, use of force, powers, how we go about utilising our powers in a way that is proportionate. And, we're looking at actually what's the processes and procedures around that. Do we, when we're looking at reviewing stop searches, so all supervisors review our stop searches, and you'll be aware that we have the body cameras now, so we have the body-worn video cameras. So when we're stopping anybody from all communities, we have that. It's in place whereby we have to have body cameras switched on at all times. We then obviously go through the process of, what are our grounds for doing that search, and then be able to explain to that person why we're stop searching them. And then at the end of that, we've put in place a QR code whereby they can give feedback on that stop search should they wish to do so, good or bad, so we can continue to learn about how actually. And, we have now reduced the amount of stop searches that are done, and we talk about positive outcomes in stop searches. So if a stop search is done and whereby we're searching a person because we believe they may have a knife on them, or we may believe they may have drugs on them, what we call a positive outcome is that we find a knife or we find the drugs. So now that has come in line now with Black people and white people, that we're having the same outcome rates. So I think it's at 34% now, outcome rates whereby we find what we were looking for, which means that there's a bit more work now around the fact that actually we can't just go out and just stop search anybody. We have to have those grounds. We have to have that, to believe that they've got something on them. And also we've brought in a mechanism whereby we can just review actually the history behind how many times has that person been stop searched? How many times have we found something on them? And is it a case of the legacy of he's always in that area, she's always in that area, and she's committing crime when actually nothing's been found historically, which all feeds into the officer's grounds for search. So that's work stream 2. Work stream 3 is around Black people and communities being routinely involved in the governance of policing. So that's around our IAGs and our ISAGs, so our independent advisory groups and our independent scrutiny advisory groups. So that's where we look at cases where we can talk about, we can actually, members of the group can look at stop searches, hate crimes, use of force, and then provide us some narrative on whether or not they believe that that was utilised correctly. You know, what is there anything learning from that, which then goes back directly to the officers. That's the scrutiny side of things, and the IAGs around looking at our policies and procedures and putting in place new policies and procedures if things are outdated or if things go against, you know, what a community would want. And the fourth one is around not being underprotected. So again, supporting victims of crime, vulnerable victims of crime. And that's, we're doing some work at the minute around looking at, about if there's repeat victims from the Black community. And the Police Race Action Plan is about the Black community. It's not at the minute focusing on other communities.
Okay.
It is solely about the Black community. So yeah, again, looking at, you know, are there patterns? Is there an increase in a certain crime type in a certain area? And we're developing digital tools all the time to be able to look at, you know, is there any mapping? Is there anything? Is there certain people who were causing these or perpetrators of these crimes? So we can just look into actually, you know, are we getting the right support? Is the victim? We've got a victim code where we've got to update victims within a certain time, and we've looked at there. It was 42 days. However, it's now moved down to 28 days. Well, you can imagine if you ring the police and you don't get an update in 42 days, we're talking a month and a half. It's a long time to be a victim of crime and us not have that, you know, that update from the police. So that's been reduced down to 28 days, and that's as a result of some of the feedback that we've received. And then we have the governance structures around making sure, and me as SLT on a morning, we look at our victims of crime updates being done in line with, you know, those sort of guidelines. So yeah, those are the 4 work streams, and we've got work stream leads for all of those 4 areas that we're looking at, and then we're all working amongst them. And at Kirklees, we're looking at the work stream 3 we're focusing on at the minute, which is the community side of things.
Okay. So it's a national programme that's been rolled out. How have you, or how have the police, should I say, not just you, tried to implement that in Kirklees itself?
Yeah, so we had a launch event last year whereby the Chief Constable, the Deputy Mayor and several members of the police attended that event just to launch it, explain, like I have done now, about the 4 work streams and then what we intend to do and how we intend to do it. So a lot of the work goes on in the background, I will say, like a lot of the things that I've talked about there around the policing. And we've recently developed the Caribbean and African Police Society, which CAPS, which they are involved in the ISAG and the independent work around the powers, policies, procedures, that sort of thing. So a lot of the stuff isn't, I won't say front and centre to the communities and goes on behind, but like anything, you know, we've had discussions. If the community don't know about it, it's not happening, or they believe it's not happening. So the way that kind of I've looked at it and wanted to bring it in Kirklees was just looking at, well, who is influential within the Black community, and then how are we able to basically get the message out as to what we're trying to do. So everything I've just talked about there won't be known in the communities, and it's having the right people in the right areas to be able to pass messages out to us. So I think we've been working now for about 10, 11 months now on working with KLTV around actually what can we do within this community whereby we're going to get the support and we're going to get heard in the community as to what we're doing. So we started doing lots of things together around getting that message out, looking at, and we've got scrutiny panels, we've got independent, we've got the IAG group, which I run, to look at actually some of our policies and what we're doing in Kirklees. We've implemented the reviews of the stop searches within our continuous improvement unit. So we're reviewing all stop searches involving a Black person. We're reviewing all those, making sure that legalities are all right and they are legitimate in what they're doing. And then we're looking around the victims of crime piece. Like I said, it's called Power BI is our model, which is our data which looks at the victims and then scoping that out. And then we've started doing some work around the Clear Hole Build initiative. which when we've done a crime severity, so we've looked at where is the sort of the highest crime, or where I will say is, I will now say was the highest crime area within Kirklees, whereby we can put in the Clear Hole Build Initiative, which I know you'll probably go on to talk about, and that was around the Ashbrow Ward area. And what could we do to basically make that community and make it feel safer for the community? There's lots of other things within Clear Hole Build, but for me, it's just around actually being able to influence and make that community safe and feel safe, and that maybe the environmental things, lights, such like, old abandoned buildings, being able to get some funding in to make it that community hub, because there's lots and lots of fantastic stuff that's happening in Ashbrow, and it's getting that voice heard and showcasing what the area has and is doing.
Okay. One of the concerns, I guess, that has been raised with black communities across the country, not just Kirklees, is their involvement and participation in the development of the police race action plan. And it's also an issue that I believe was raised following the initial launch in November of last year. So this one I'm asking is how have the police gone about trying to engage more with the local community, particularly African descent community, in finding ways to move forward to develop the plan on a more localised level?
So you're right, and after all of those work streams, it's the national plan, but then it is about actually, well, how does that affect Kirklees? So we've reached out in relation to how could we move this forward, how could we communicate and get that communication between the community and ourselves. And then so we've collaborated with APAN. So APAN, Ashbrow Parent Advocacy Network, which is a group involving health, involving local council, involving third sector organisations who come together, and we've discussed how we can sort of progress forward with that. So as part of that, we've developed the scrutiny panel, so APAN scrutiny group, whereby much like the scrutiny panel that's held at like force level, we're going to look locally at use of force, stop searches, hate crime in the Ashbrow, specifically in the Ashbrow area. Also, as part of that, so that obviously is impacting on, and we'll get feedback there about the various powers and policies we use and anything that we can learn locally. But then also we're going to have a mechanism whereby people can report in through that channel as well. So not just a case of coming to the police, because people historically don't want to come to the police. There's the trust element that we've got to build up. So it's about having trusted members of that community who people can speak to and refer things in and ask the questions, and then I can, be held to account with regards to the policing as to, well, actually, what can you have a look at this? Can you? Is there anything we can do with this? Is there anything we can learn from that? And then have that two-way dialogue. And hopefully, in doing that, it shows that transparency, and it'll help build and start building the structures that we need for that confidence, and show the transparency that we've got in the police. And the use of the body cameras now has been really good, because you can see, we can see what's gone on, we can see, and obviously hopefully change that narrative around the trust element of the police.
Yeah, and I guess a lack, or there's been quite clearly a disconnect between the black community and the police, and it's about trying to restore that. And that may take time, but we have to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Can you just share a little bit about some of the other ideas, around reconciliation, that sort of thing? Because there's moving forward, but there's also, I guess, a need to just take a step back and to just recognise, I guess, from a police perspective, the historical experiences that the black community may still be holding on to, which in a lot of ways needs to be addressed before we can move forward? Can you just touch us a
Absolutely,
little
yeah.
bit?
So again, we've looked at like a reconciliation event, inviting members of the community to come and share some of the experiences, to come and be able to talk through some of that trauma, and what are the historical things. When I've talked about feelings and emotions, and why is it that we've got this history, why is it we've still got this narrative in 2024, and it is because people have got trauma. It is because actually trust is earned. You can't just expect to be able to go in and for somebody to trust me straight away. And I've been doing this role. I've been a police officer for 21 years, but I've been doing and all at Kirklees District, which is a bit of an anomaly because we like to move around a bit. But I've done it all at Kirklees, so I understand the communities. And now I'm in a position, where I'm one of the senior leaders at Kirklees. So it's my job and it's my duty to start looking at actually why. What can we do to really listen? Not just say we're listening, really listen, and be able to perhaps help some people with that trauma. Like you say, people, expect things to happen overnight. It just doesn't. When people are asking me about, well, how long will this be? Or, how long would it take? I'm talking 5 years plus. It's not going to be a quick thing, and you to be able to trust it, that's going to take some time. But I'm willing to do that. We have to be willing. We have to open ourselves up and say, yeah, we've got it wrong, or actually, this is the reasons why. If people understand and if people are spoken to and have the opportunity to air, that some of that trauma, then I think it's that point when we start moving forward a bit and keep coming back and keep having the conversations, because then at least the trust element starts, I think, slowly to develop.
I guess my final question would be then for you, Rebecca, is if there was one thing you'd want to say to the African descent community in Kirklees right now, what would it be?
I want to hear. I want to hear you. I want to hear. I want people to feel that they belong in this community and that they are heard by the police, and that their trauma, I will do my very best to be able to get us to a position whereby we can move forward together, and that they ever don't feel like they are ever at a disadvantage due to their colour, the colour of their skin. So it's very much around, I'm here to make change. I'm here to be vulnerable and to take criticism and to be able to move forward together.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you, Chief Inspector Calpin, for sharing your valuable insights and your dedication to community safety. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today on the African Descendants Forum. I think you'd agree that it's been an absolute privilege to hear from Chief Inspector Rebecca Calpin about her inspiring journey and the essential work being done in community policing and partnerships. The insights she shared today remind us of the critical role that effective communication and collaboration play in enhancing community safety and fostering trust between law enforcement and the community at large. As we continue to address the complexities of policing and community relations, it's imperative that we all remain engaged and proactive in these discussions. And so we encourage our listeners to stay informed and participate in local initiatives that promote unity and understanding. Until next time, let's all keep striving for empowerment, understanding, and mutual support, as together we build stronger, more inclusive communities for everyone.